Hello, and welcome to the volumetric pitching session number 1. This is for projects that are in development, looking for funding, looking for distribution, looking for festival curation, looking for support. Thank you for tuning in. You're going to hear from 8 remarkable projects from all around the world. They're all volumetric work, and they're all in varying stages of development. Before we get going, though, I'm going to thank some people because a lot of folks had to pull together to make this possible. I want to thank Microsoft Mixed Reality Capture Studios, Teta V, Sense of Space, EFEV, the Province of British Columbia, the Western Economic Diversification Fund, the Canadian Media Fund, Producers Association, the Canadian Media Fund, and particularly Valerie Creighton, CEO of the Canadian Media Fund, who we are about to hear from. Valerie, take it away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. A warm thank you to the organizers, staff, and volunteers of VIFF Immersed 2020. Events like this take a tremendous amount of work, and they simply would not be possible without the tireless efforts of all involved, including the participants. So thanks to all. XR producers from Canada and around the world are creating new experiences that push the boundaries of art and technology, offering immersive content from new and undiscovered perspectives. This has changed our viewing media experiences as we discover this tremendous content. Since 2012, the Canada Media Fund has invested over $60 million in 150 projects in VR and AR. We're very proud of the many success stories as a result of this investment. So have a productive and inspiring next few days as you delve into the exciting world of XR entertainment through VIFF Immersed 2020.
All right, thank you, Valerie. So again, 8 remarkable projects coming up right now. The way it's going to work, 5-minute presentations. These artists have been polishing and crafting these presentations for a long time, so they should be beautiful, digestible encapsulations of their work, followed by Q&A. We've got some industry folk on the line who will be asking questions. If you're watching this and have questions for the artists, throw it into the chat log of whatever platform you're watching this on, and we'll do our best to address those. I also want to let everyone know that these projects, as well as the exhibition curated by Storytech Immersive, are all on exhibit at the Museum of Other Realities. So go download the museum for whatever headset you have and join us there after these presentations are done. The artists will be there as well, so you can hang out with them in virtual reality, talk to them, experience demos of their work. It's a lot of fun. It's a beautiful environment, and I hope to see you there. So without further ado, we're going to kick things off with a project called Before Our Time. David and Timur, would you mind joining me? Hi.
Hi. How's it going?
It's going really well. Excited to hear your presentation. So why don't you go ahead and share your screen and take it away.
Sure.
Looking good. Whenever you're ready.
Great. Hi, I'm producer David Cameron, coming to you from the Andes of Peru. And I'm here with director Timur Musabay, who's in Toronto, to introduce a project we're developing. Every good story begins with a great mystery, and our project embraces one of the greatest mysteries of our time, our own history on this planet. Over the past decade, we've begun to learn that a mere 13,000 years ago, the Earth was struck by a massive cataclysm, likely caused by large-scale debris from a comet or even a solar outburst. Researchers say that this event spread over a huge portion of the globe, melting the Laurentide ice sheet, raising the sea level by over 100 meters, scorching the Earth, and causing tidal floods around the world, obliterating life as we know it. Is it a coincidence that nearly every culture shares a myth about massive flood that destroyed the Earth? What would be left of a civilization that existed before this event? The world is riddled with ancient ruins. Many of them share mounting evidence suggesting that they are much older than what modern history has taught us. and that they may have been subjected to a cataclysmic series of events in our relative recent past on a scale we can barely imagine. The more I learned about these sites, the more I felt misled by the current narrative. I felt a profound and passionate spiritual connection in their presence that beckoned me to question their origins. We hope to invoke these same feelings as we introduce our audience to evidence that these sites may have been built upon remnants of an even older site or sites, possibly created by a previous civilization that came before our time. Before Our Time is a non-linear, 6-DOF, documentary-style XR experience that investigates this evidence at 5 ancient sites using photogrammetric reconstructions of the ruins, along with 3D 360 imagery and traditional media. But it's more than just Google Earth VR for ancient ruins. Our narrative proposes that evidence of a previous civilization can be found by examining key facets of each site. Many sites, for example, show signs of catastrophic damage. Often, the oldest stonework shows this damage, while the youngest does not. Other sites appear to have been built with such vastly different styles of construction that they may have been built in different epochs and by different cultures, with newer cultures inheriting and building upon older megalithic sites. To begin our investigation, we're building a prototype application with Unity that reconstructs the sites of Inquiltambo and Kenco near the city of Cusco, Peru. The app combines volumetric exploration guided by narration and voice-over commentary from researchers and academics. We want to provide viewpoints from all sides of the story in a way that gets people thinking about the evidence and contrasting it to conventional wisdom. As with 2019's The Holy City, virtual explorers can expect to be able to investigate the sites in 6DOF, examine stonework, and interact with artifacts, while also listening to insight from experts and music from world-renowned spiritual artists. And now, here's a short trailer.
Hi, I'm David Cameron, founder of Inverse Cinematic Reality, and a virtual reality content creator from Vancouver, Canada. For the past 8 months, I've been filming, photographing, and scanning some of the world's most enigmatic ruins. I'm driven by the evidence and the advice from experts that suggests there's more going on here than we currently understand, that the existing theories aren't necessarily supported by the existing evidence. I believe that by allowing more people to view the evidence for themselves, that it opens the discussion to a wider variety of people and a more diverse set of backgrounds. That's why we're developing an app that allows you to explore this evidence for yourself. To accomplish this, we've teamed up with Toronto-based virtual reality developer Occupied VR. Over the past 5 years, Occupied has been delivering some of the most exciting, world-class VR experiences, and we're excited to bring the same level of quality they've become known for. With your support, we can bring the Before Our Time app to your desktop and virtual reality headset, providing you with the tools to gain virtual, first-hand experience at some of the world's most ancient sites.
Along with our partners at Occupied, we bring a highly talented team to the project with years of experience on award-winning projects and with such clients as David Cronenberg, Ridley Scott, Vice, and Samsung. Having raised an initial 20,000 Canadian, we recently completed principal photography for the prototype with over 25,000 images captured, as well as extensive 3D 360 video. We're looking to raise an additional 80,000 to complete the prototype and bring a fully explorable experience to desktop VR and standalone headsets. Beyond this, we're looking to raise 450,000 Canadian to bring the experience of 5 ancient sites to a fully commercial project. We hope to compete with other VR exploration apps such as National Geographic Explorer, while adding a strong narrative presence that goes beyond what these apps offer. We're also looking for distribution partners with experience in this type of content and exhibition partners who see an opportunity for our content in their venue. In short, we're looking to tell a story of what might just be the greatest lost history of our time, and we hope you'll join us on the adventure. Thank you.
Presentation. All right, decision makers. We've got it looks like 4 folks on the line: Lauren, Blank, Mark, Milo. If you wouldn't mind turning your video on, asking any questions you might have of these artists. Hey, Mark, good to see you, buddy. What's up, Blake? So thoughts, questions, things that needed clarification, areas that shined.
I love the work or the idea and concept behind what you're doing, but I'm super kind of curious where your research comes from and kind of your basis for the project.
A lot of the research comes from, I guess, what's called the Comet Research Group, which is a sort of a fellowship of 60 or 70 academic professionals that have proposed that, over the past decade have begun to propose through their literature and their academic papers that there was a comet that hit the Earth, not in one giant, comet, but actually broke apart in fragments and caused this global catastrophe 12,800 years ago, resulting in a period of time known as the Younger Dryas. And so that was sort of the genesis for the project was just the shift in thinking what we'd learned in history, that, the last major cataclysm on Earth was the dinosaurs, but actually it's not. It's quite more recent in our history. And it's only in the last couple of years that the literature's really begin to solidify in the mainstream that yes, it really seems that there was a cosmic impact at this period of time, 12,800 years ago. And there's a fairly large, wide agreement between a lot of professionals now that this happened. So when I visited Lebanon and the Middle East and Peru and started looking at these sites, these ancient sites, and talking with locals and natives and people who'd done independent research on these, I would say Graham Hancock was a big influence. You start seeing some of the discrepancies that just don't add up to the conventional narrative. For example, it's a lot of the Incan sites, the sites attributed to the Inca, you see a layering of types of construction. So you see very simple brickwork, which looks like anyone of this age could build it quite easily. But then you see the older megalithic brickwork, stonework, where there's jigsaw walls put together in such an amazing way, where you have 80 to 100 ton stones fit together in 3D geometry with such precision and no mortar whatsoever, that you have to wonder if the Inca built both of these things. Why is there such poor craftsmanship on the majority of their work, but there's such master craftsmanship on this larger work? And then you go even older than that, and there's stone shaping right into the bedrock itself, which looks like it even comes from an older epoch. You see the aging and weathering on these stones that's even older than the jigsaw walls. And you have to wonder, well, if the Inca built all of this, if they had the technology to shape stone and to create these amazing stone monuments that are megalithic, why did they resort to building such, generic sort of general walls and terraces around the country? It really seems, that there were different cultures involved here, and that because of the oldest stone shows so much damage to it, some of it's cracked right in half, some of it is melted, some of it has intense heat damage and scorching on it. Some of it has tremendous earthquake damage, like at Machu Picchu. You see the buildings, the oldest stonework broken apart, from what could only be, described as a 9 or 10 earthquake. And those parts of the site are broken apart. But the sites with the typical Inca style stonework that isn't that impressive, none of that's broken apart. So you have to wonder, if there was an earthquake of a magnitude 10, why didn't the newer stonework break apart and this older megalithic stuff break apart? There's just these types of questions come up, and it just makes you wonder, if one culture built all this stuff, it doesn't make sense. So that's kind of the genesis for the project, is bringing these bits of evidence that you find by visiting the sites that make you just kind of like, now that I've seen this, I can't really unsee it. I'm questioning what I grew up learning. I'm questioning what the narrative used to be, because there's a lot of new evidence now that when you see it for yourself, just makes you really question the existing narrative. Does that answer?
And I do think the pleasure and excitement of seeing it for yourself is the key of the project.
Yes,
we've got time for one more quick question, if anyone has one.
Sure. I've got an observation first, and then a question. My observation would be that this does a lot of things that VR is very good at. It kind of inspires that sense of wonder, and allows us to sort of peep into hidden worlds, I suppose. And it can also, it's very good at doing awe. So as soon as you move into sort of ancient sites and sacred sites. That could be really awe-inspiring. So it could be an amazing experience. And my other observation is that the time is right for this kind of a thing. Like, people are seeking answers for all kinds of things, really. And there's definitely going to be an audience for this. And I think they would be prepared to pay to have this experience, because the people who are into this kind of stuff tend to be very into it, and they seek it out. And they're highly motivated. From my point of view, I work as a curator with a documentary festival, CPH Docs, and a science festival in Germany called Silbersalz. And if we're faced with something like this, then what we would want to know straight up is who are the academics that you're working with? What's the science there? Who are the historians, the archaeologists, etc. And that would be a very important aspect for us if we were to consider including it in either of those events.
So seeing perhaps a partnership with a few key academics that you could research and, do back, make your own assessment of. Is that what you're saying, Mark?
Absolutely.
When occupied, we just completed a project called The Holy City, in which we went to Jerusalem, and it's an interactive nonlinear documentary exploring the three Abrahamic religions, and we stand like Al-Aqsa, the Dome of the Rock, the Western Wall, the Tomb of Jesus, the Holy Sepulchre, the tunnels underneath. I mean, basically 15 different locations there. And one thing that was of prime importance was to speak with the religious heads. Like, I met with the Imam at Al-Aqsa. We basically, all three of the Abrahamic religions, we spoke with academics. We formed really close partnerships, and we tested it on them. We took their insights, and it's very, very important to be factual and not just it's not just hearsay, and to keep everything very academic when dealing with academic subject matters such as this. So we do hold that very, very close to the project.
Wonderful. Thank you, Timur, and thank you, David. Really interesting project, and excited to see the demo as soon as it's done. We're going to move on to the next project. Before we do, if you wouldn't mind turning off your screens, and I'll also want to make sure that everyone knows that that was Mark Atkins from CPH Docs and Electric Dreams, Blake Kamerdiner from South by Southwest, and Milo Talwani from Sundance. And we also have Lauren Hammond from Tribeca on the line as well. So the next project up is Stay Alive, My Son. Victoria, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, Victoria. Good to see you again.
Good to see you as well. Let me just get the screen share going and we can start.
Wonderful.
Okay. Yes, we're good.
And we're off to the races. Take us away.
Great. Hi, everybody. My name is Victoria Bousis. I'm the writer, director, and producer of this immersive experience called Stay Alive, My Son. Stay Alive, My Son is based on probably the most renowned book about the Cambodian genocide written by this man, Penya Thai, on the left. And it recounts his story of survival during the Cambodian genocide. There's a picture of him on the right after his escape. And it retells the story of his family, but even more gut-wrenching, it retells the story and the decision he had to make to abandon his 6-year-old son behind in order to survive, the little guy in the middle called Nawath. It's a decision that plagues him still, and the title comes from "Stay alive, my son, stay alive" are the last words he told Nawath as he bathed him at the river. Oops. It's not listening to me. Okay. So a lot of people always ask me, Victoria, you're Greek American. How did a Cambodian story come to you? And quite honestly, at the time, I had found the book about 8 years ago when I was traveling in Cambodia. And just last year, I was being bombarded by the news of, the refugee crisis happening again in Greece, similar to also my country, the United States as well, in which the immigration reform was separating countless families. And I thought about my body, my life's work, and this story resonated deeply within me, starting as a prosecutor in my 20s, later on as a film producer, making compelling stories about the human experience in numerous film festivals, and then much more recent, exploring emerging technologies such as VR and AR at MIT, in which I did my first experience. And the first experience I did, I was hooked. So Stay Alive, My Son became something that I wanted to create in VR. It is an immersive journey through a father's heart to experience an inspirational story of his relentless search for his son. It spans over 44 years, and it is a story of survival, but also of atonement. It's a cinematic experiencing, leveraging my skill set as a filmmaker, anchoring reality with the story. It's in first person, meaning that the player embodies Penya Tai as he travels in his past to re-experience these memories. The production design, these are actual frames from the experience as it stands today, unlike the teaser, which you'll see, which was done earlier in February. We use elaborate production design because it was really important for me to really honor this man and his story by honoring the time period, who he was, and the items we picked, and also that all of the production design mirrors what actually existed. So I worked really, really closely with Ty to create this authenticity and ensure that it was there. Similarly, costume design was very important for the piece. As we traveled through time and space in the experience, it was important to show that how this middle-class family started deteriorating also visually and eventually reached an emaciated Khmer Rouge state. The performances were very important to me, again, because this is a real family, and I've gotten really close to Ty through the years. And so I thought it was crucial to have volumetric capture here to capture the gripping performances of this wonderful group of actors that I had the pleasure of directing. The emotions are so wide. They go from a lot of familial love all the way to loss and grief. And I think they really did a beautiful job, which is really encapsulated in the piece. Again, we used elaborate, SFX to show the emaciation. You saw the photo of Ty when he escaped. So we not only did the emaciation in that way, but we also aged him from the age of 33 when he escaped to 77, his age today. Also leveraging film techniques, I did an elaborate montage sequence, which you travel and fly on a paper airplane through a heart valve, going through the evacuation of Phnom Penh where things are exploding and people are yelling at you, through the rice fields and the labor camps, straight through to the key moment when the first child passes. It's an interactive experience, and I thought that that's important because we are in VR, so I really wanted to leverage that to bring these memories to life. A small example is when the key character asks you for his help to open up his heart and set them free, these particle systems come towards you. As you make contact with them, they intensify, and all of a sudden it transitions and you dive into his core. Another example is as you approach a scene which is otherwise dark and hidden, kind of mirroring that loss aspect, you wave these particle systems, the emotional particle systems, and then color starts permeating the scene, enlivening the scene to symbolize that we bring life to our memories when we visit them. Again, each interaction is key to an emotional beat. When you grab the paper airplane of the little boy asking you, begging you that we've got to go, when you grab the paper airplane, you physically throw it, the next scene it transitions and you on the paper airplane with the family. And it's authentic experience in the sense that I got to work with an amazing group of talent, and starting with Arnold Chung, his family was separated during the Korean War. He plays old and young Thai. His work is known in Transformers and Man in the High Castle, followed by Elodie Young. She's French-Cambodian. Her father too was a survivor of the Cambodian genocide. She's known in her work in Marvel's Daredevil, G.I. Joe Retaliation, and Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. My two little guys in the center are brothers in life and also in the VR experience. They too have a history with Cuba and Japan, and then Vincent Rodriguez as well, who plays our quintessential bad guy. Really great, wonderful cast, and the performances show their commitment and their emotion about the project. I wouldn't be here without my wonderful production partner. Sensorium was key in the volumetric capture, and then Converge Entertainment, who has been literally besides me through the entire process. Not only as a creator, but also their work is incredible. They're known for their work in Tree. Also, I'm working closely with MIT in doing some research papers related to the emotional connection of virtual reality versus traditional mediums using biometrics in that conversation. Happy to geek out offline with any one of you afterwards. And then I would say it's a resonating experience. I know this is a cognitive load for a lot of people. The emotions are so wild. And so I really wanted to take time with the story and give it in 2 chapters. I'll talk a lot about that in a second, but before that, let me give you a sneak preview.
Everything that was dear to me, now reduced to memories living inside my heart. If you could open my heart, maybe you could set me free. Inside every heart is a story of love and loss. My family was my greatest strength.
Hi, Papa.
We were loved.
1, 2, 3, Coco.
This is my story. That of a father and his son, and the decades we lost in between.
Mark, what's happening?
Nothing. Come here. There's nothing to be scared of. Hurry, children, let's go. Let's go. Let's pack everything. Let's go. Stand up, let's go.
The Khmer Rouge sought to destroy our spirit. But we found strength in each other.
Voice is here. Remember.
Your re-education is near.
Bong, what will happen now?
So that was the piece. And as I mentioned, it's in 2 chapters, about 50 to 17 minutes per chapter. Our production is starting again. Obviously, you know, COVID affected everyone's life. The studio reopens again on the 12th. Production will commence. We should be done by the piece by January, February. Chapter 2 will begin in March. And while chapter 1 is making its rounds, hopefully through the festival circuit, we will commence production, and everything should be done by August, and the biometric research will follow. Some small little details, I think I covered most of it, but the idea is to go through Oculus Rift and Festival Showcase first, releasing each chapter, chapter 1 separately, and then releasing the entire thing with chapter 2 at the end with Oculus and Steam. And then I know Oculus Quest 2 is out, and it's very powerful, so I'm excited about that in order to widen distribution so that many more people can enjoy this piece. Museum as an education, and nonprofits being part of that conversation. And then eventually the third release to be is a 360 to various telecom companies and companies like VIFF. I think the rest we covered. Our ask is $150,000. 125 has funded chapter 1 and all of the volumetric capture for the entire piece. The 75,000 will be for chapter 2. An additional 75 goes to other costs, which is Search for the Young Boy, which we've already commenced, the biometric integration, et cetera, et cetera. What we're looking for is some partnership with some interesting volumetric studios to help us with refinement, eye retargeting and AI. And I'd love to potentially work with Microsoft with their latest research on human touch, since touch is such an important part of this piece. Other strategic financiers and co-producers we're very open and welcoming of, and also any VFX companies that have global water shading and for the polish. I think it's also important to meet with companies that are like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and 23andMe to increase this conversation about family separation and use this piece to raise awareness and hopefully bring people together. The last thing I will say, and I think I've run a little bit over, so forgive me for that, is this piece ends with a call to action. And the call to action is to help us find the boy, Nawath or See What Happened to Him. Good friends of mine at school, using aging technology, composited their father, Ty on the right, and his mother on the left, with what the child looked like at the age of 6 in the center. And we aged him to what he would be like today, which is 50 years old, which is the photo in the center. So we're going to use that in the piece to have a call to action and hopefully have this man find some kind of resolve. This is MIT stuff, which we can talk about offline. So thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to pitch here and present the project. Thank you, Renee, VIFF, and Museum of the Realities for all the support. And I'm sorry if I bored some of you, because I know you've probably seen the pitch before, but thank you very much for the opportunity.
Hardly boring. Thank you, Victoria, for sharing that. Great presentation. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but you answered so much in the presentation. I'm sure there were none left. But if anyone wants to follow up, you had your email address on the last slide there. It's Victoria at ume.ai. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Next up, we have a vocal landscape. Omid and Anne, do you mind turning on your screen and jumping in?
Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Good to see you.
So we're gonna start by just sharing our screen. So.
Okay. Fantastic.
Keynote. Share video sound.
Yes.
Share. Okay.
And we're off to the races. Take it away.
Great. Hi, my name is Omid, and I'm a director and cinematographer from Iran, and I live in France.
And my name is Anne, and I'm a sound producer and documentarist from Denmark.
Our project is called The Vocal Landscape. It's a linear VR artwork around 7 minutes, and it's based on a documentary style recording, and it's a 6-DoF VR.
Do you know that feeling of being in a conversation with someone? You're approaching each other, and then you hit a moment of total connection. But then before you know it, you lose it again. Your minds drift in different directions. Individual associations pop up, creating a new dynamic between you. Soon after, you might even end up in completely different places, incapable of finding each other. This ephemerality of human connection is essentially what we're exploring in our VR experience. Our way to explore this is through the sound of a human voice. When a voice communicates, it delivers words, but there's so much more information coming out. In the rhythm, intensity, and melodies of the voice, you can hear a person's moods, intentions, lived life, and the interactions of the present moment. All of this comes through in very subtle ways through the voice.
We're building our piece around an audio recording of an intimate late-night conversation between two people. We want to create an enhanced experience of this conversation. And with the visuals that is based on volumetric recording, we're trying to exaggerate the nuances in the voices that communicates the mood, emotions, and lived experience. Through our interactive visuals, we bring them to the surface or out in the room. It could be intentions shown as formations, bridging between the characters, emotions shown as colors, confidence shown as changes in density and form of our characters. In this approach, we are inspired a lot by the Canadian filmmaker Chris Landreth and the short film Brian in particular.
So the experience in itself is this. As a spectator, you come in to a pitch black room. You see the characters lighting up, sitting on the floor, talking, and you see a sort of airy bubble around them. When you step into that bubble, you enter the intimate inner space. And that's when you get all the visual layers. You get more sound richness and you get sound design. And through this simple setup, we want to draw people in and invite them to explore the conversation up close.
Since January 2020, when we came to Venice VR, we've been working on this project. The project was selected as part of the Venice College Cinema VR. And as part of the framework, we planned it as a low-budget production. Just a week ago, we received the EPIC Mega Grant, which means that we'll go into production in November with our production partner here, Hora VR in Copenhagen. However, we're still looking for additional funding to secure the overall cost of the project and eventual distribution.
Basically, with our piece, we want people to slow down, listen, and look. We're creating this piece as a celebration to human connection, but part of our motivation is also a fear that this sort of connecting might be an endangered part or an aspect of our existence. We feel that human communication is quite challenged by modern means of communication like social media. Subtleties of communication can easily get lost. And we fear that the digital way of being in the world might affect our ability to tune into that complex dance of real-life interactions with others and the ability to stay present with each other.
In our experience, we over-amplify the subtleties of communication so that they come to the surface. Maybe this can create a new heightened sensitivity for the spectator that they can take away with them when they leave the experience. It's our hope that then it may be more obvious for them to recognize these subtleties and qualities when they see them in the real life. And here's a snippet for the end. Thank you.
Beautiful work. Thank you for sharing it. All right, decision makers, turn your cameras on. Let's ask some questions. Milo, Mark, Lauren, Blake, are you there? Tune in, come back. Hi, Mark. What's up, Blake? All right, who's got thoughts, questions, feedback, things that worked, things that you want clarification about? All the questions were answered. I like that.
Great.
No confusion.
Yeah, so I'm curious about your timeline on the project with where you're at now and where you see yourself over the next coming months with production.
I don't see actually the video. Who's talking?
That was Blake from South by Southwest.
Blake. Okay, sorry. Well, basically, hi, Blake. Basically, we're starting in November, late November, and we're thinking that we'll be done by March. We will have a final build by March. So we're basically trying to actually have a pretty much like working development by end of November, mid-December, something that gives us a direction like how we're going to speed up or slow down probably. But the plan for now is to finish by March.
Fantastic. Mark, any thoughts?
Well, I just wondered what your sort of intentions are come March, because I work as a curator for CPH Docs. So this would seem like a natural home for this kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Considering where you're from. And then it seems as though you're going to finish right in time. But what are your intentions for getting it out into the world?
You want to say something?
I think the main intention is like it's a celebration of human connection, as we say, and I think I don't know if I can say anything new about it, but it comes a lot from that place that we feel it's something that we should cherish more, that find moments of actual connection between humans being present with each other, and it's something we want to build a piece that over amplifies what goes on when these moments happen, to make it clearer and to make it a sort of a heightened awareness around what that is, and
what you're saying is very true, and through what your fears were about how our use of social platforms can diminish this. have probably also been exacerbated through the lockdown as we rely on them more and more. But at the same time, we yearn more and more for some kind of realistic human contact. So you're definitely tapping into something, and the time is right for this.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, we didn't mention Corona at all, but of course it's been super intensified. That other ways of communication and the difficulty to actually connect. So yeah, maybe it also comes extra out as a intensified longing that we have.
Yeah.
A lot of us, and we do too. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, resonates. I'm deleting all my social media accounts, by the way. Not joking. Today or tomorrow, I'm going to finish doing it.
We also, yeah.
Yeah, hashtag Jaron Lanier.
Yeah.
Big congratulations on the Epic mega grant that you received too. Well done on that. And applaud Epic for awarding cool projects like this funding. Hooray. Wonderful. Okay, well, let's move on to the next project. Thank you so much for presenting this project. Really beautiful work.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Next up, we have Our Home and Haunted Land. Nadine, Valcin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Nadine. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Let me just share my screen.
Looking good.
Let me just go full screen a sec. And there we are.
Brilliant. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you. I'm honored to be here today in such amazing company. My name is Nadine Valcin. I am a filmmaker and a media artist based in Toronto. This project starts over a year ago on the legendary Queen streetcar in Toronto with a chance encounter with an elderly gentleman from Guyana. He asked me for the time and then sat next to me and started recounting numerous stories related to the history of the street. He had worked in the trendy candy factory lofts when the building was still used to produce Rocket's candies. He had later found a job at a shoe factory a few blocks away in an industrial area that has succumbed to yet again more condominium towers. Then we came to the Gladstone Hotel. And what he revealed about the Toronto landmark, which is barely 5 blocks away from my house, totally floored me. Built in 1889, the hotel and the adjacent streets are named after British Prime Minister William Gladstone, son of Sir John William Gladstone, who, the elderly man revealed, was the largest slave owner in the British Empire. This shocking fact led me to start questioning what else was hidden in the names of the streets and spaces that surround us. Our Home and Haunted Land uses immersive storytelling to reveal the deep historical connections that exist between various locations around the globe. Photogrammetry, LiDAR scans, archival photographs, maps, animated characters, and sonic elements will be assembled in a rich 3D collage. Users will be transported on an experiential journey, traveling seamlessly through time and space, hearing bits of dialogue, catching glimpses of ghosts, reading fragments of animated text that will expose the hidden histories that haunt our city and our country. The 3D room-scale installation featuring projection mapping will also be adapted for large-scale exterior projection and be deployed as an augmented reality app. Toponymy serves as a point of departure to reveal the deep legacy linked to the names of significant places in the city. The project looks at the violent heritage of the land we live on and seeks to make visible the Black and Indigenous presence in Toronto, while also situating them in a broader international context. The Gladstone Hotel, for example, connects to Liverpool, where John Gladstone lived and was the major port in Britain related to the slave trade, and also to Jamaica and Guyana, where Gladstone had plantations. Much of the 3D environments will be rendered in point clouds generated through photogrammetry and LiDAR. A key characteristic of point clouds is their changing nature depending on the viewer's location. From far away, they look opaque, but they become increasingly more transparent with proximity. They are the perfect metaphor for the history that haunts the city, but is somehow invisible. This project started modestly a few months ago as my MFA thesis, but has steadily been expanding and gaining momentum. Collaborating with me on the project as producers is Oya Media Group, Lucid Dreams, the team behind the award-winning VR project The Key, are mentors courtesy of Crux Cooperative. Multimedia design firm Tacit Media Group will handle the projection mapping, and OCAD University's Digital Futures graduate program, Why I'm a Student, is providing technical support. As for production, photogrammetry scans are already underway. The room scale installation is slated for completion next April, while an exterior projection is planned to launch at Nuit Blanche in October 2021. So given the current social upheaval and the communal questioning around historical monuments and street names, the project takes on a particular urgency and a momentous relevance. We envision this as the initial phase of an endeavor that will be expanded to tell additional stories about significant locations around the globe. I hope you will join us on this important journey. Thank you.
Well done. Great list of partners. I have been tracking this project for a bit of time, and I don't believe they were all on board the last time I reviewed everything. So well done.
Thank
Great
you. That's all happened last month.
Well, well done. I love all those people. Speaks volumes to you in the project. All right. Blake, Mark, Lauren, if you're there, jump in, ask questions. I've got some myself.
I'm curious if you can go in a little bit more about those different versions that you were just talking about there at the end, and how you see that playing into your distribution model.
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't really, it started off being a VR project, and then the pandemic came along, and because it's my thesis project and it's due next April, I decided to do projection mapping instead, both because I thought like nobody's gonna wanna line up and wear a headset that 10 other people have just worn in that context, and also because I felt like, because we're all so isolated and we're seeing each other mediated through screens all the time, I thought it was important to do something that would bring people together in the same space so that they could share a communal experience. So, I mean, it will really be like the AR app that would be for broader distribution. I mean, the idea is just to do a more Toronto specific, both the room scale and the exterior projection mapping for now.
Interesting. Cool. Mark, any questions, comments?
Yeah, I think their strategy is fantastic, and but then I was also thinking about places like Liverpool, other places where there's a strong connection with this, and then how would they be able to participate? Would that be through the AR app?
Well, I mean, somebody actually mentioned, and I hadn't really anticipated that with the project, that we could then, apply for grants and go and project it in we could go and project it in Liverpool and find an appropriate space to do it. And we can shift, the narrative a bit to kind of accommodate that, or we could go to Guyana. So there is like the opportunity to really actually really connect those locations by doing different presentations around the world.
One of our sessions earlier today, I guess the one right before this, was exploring sort of the creative grammar of volumetric, and particularly like around distribution and having multiple formats of the project to sort of reach as wide an audience as possible. And I do think projection mapping is really interesting. I would think of a way to have it in a festival context where it's not tied to a specific building, but something that could tour more easily. I think that would be one version that could see some legs and see a broader audience.
Yeah, I agree. I think like the room scale installation could travel quite easily.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, again, I'm very thrilled about the project in general, and also the team you've put together is really speaks volumes. I don't have any other questions. Mark, Blake, do you have anything else?
Oh, but that was a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Wonderful. Well, we'll move on then to There Exists. Anrick and Shahani, are you there? Turn on your video feed, share that screen, and let's get going.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hey, everybody. You should be seeing my screen now.
I am.
I'm going to hit that present button, and I think we're all set.
Brilliant. Whenever you're ready.
Great. So I'm going to start. I'm Shahani, and I'm here with my co-directing partner, Anrick. We're both based in London, and excited to tell you about There Exists, our volumetric project based on real data and human stories. So There Exists will be an episodic series of about 5 individuals from the past and their forgotten journeys. Migration is the overarching theme, because it's those who've searched for new horizons that have often been the catalysts of our society. So these are often stories of resilience and transformation that shape notions of identity and belonging. So this project has an interesting history. It begins with the British Library's 400-year newspaper archive, which is slowly being digitized. And through machine learning, the team there have been analyzing the papers and cross-referencing them with other archives to discover detailed stories about individuals' lives. And these are ordinary people whose stories were not recorded in books, but their experiences have had an impact beyond their own lifetimes and have never been told before. Machine learning, of course, starts from a single data point and then searches and finds direct and indirect links, searching through millions of records. And that's how we came across our first subject, Mary Randall, who we will bring to life with volumetric capture and 6DoF environments. She was mentioned in the short newspaper obituary seen here on the left, but that led to the discovery of other documents, like her name on a list of convicts on the Bellona, one of the earliest penal transportation ships, which carried 16 female convicts, as well as the first free settlers to Botany Bay in Sydney. And so slowly a picture started to form of the full life of Mary Randall through these records, who lived in London in 1792 and was convicted of a petty crime. And we have the court transcript of that trial. She was sentenced to 14 years in Australia and had to take her young daughter in tow with her. It was a brutal 5-month journey, and through captain's logs and weather reports, we know what this journey would have been like. Mary also knew that she'd been separated from her daughter upon arrival while she served her sentence. But then we also know that Mary and her daughter survived, and in fact, in a strange twist, were reunited with Mary's husband, Paul, who was already there. They remained in Sydney after her sentence and built a new life as settlers. And we've been talking to historians at Oxford who suggest that there are these new narratives emerging about women's agency and those who wanted to be sent to Australia to reunite with family or for other reasons. So these are kind of multi-layered narratives. Mary's story is the first that we've researched, but we want to make an episodic series of 5 of these using the same format and research methods that will span different eras, but also touch on contemporary issues around migration. As a whole, the series will shed light on how these migration stories have shaped the places where these individuals ended up. I'm going to hand over to Anrick, who's going to tell you more about the look and feel.
Yeah, hi everybody. Hope everybody can hear me okay. So we're going to be using volumetrically captured actors and CG scenes, so 3D environments. And we'll bring those 2 different layers into Unreal Engine using their Niagara VFX engine. And so that'll really gel that together and make a visual environment possible that has this beautiful, lifelike, and yet abstracted aesthetic that we are aiming for. We're currently working on a series of custom shader approaches to make that happen. We're going to plan to make the key spaces that shape these characters' lives come to life and allow you to experience them at first hand. So you get a taste for what those incredible journeys might have been like. You'll be like an invisible time traveler, experiencing their lives intimately through scripted drama. in addition to the narrative experience, there's also a really important room scale data component to this project, and that's focused in particular on the festival version of this project. It's like an interactive archive that you can examine and control using hand tracking interaction. And I think it's a really important way to bring to life not just the narratives that have emerged from this data process, but the real actual documents that have powered the creative decisions that made that narrative come to life. So I think it's going to be a really interesting part of the exhibition, and it could be interacted with using projection mapping, in addition to being a part of the VR experience. Shahani and I have worked together at The Guardian. We collaborated on a range of projects, including Sea Prayer, which is an amazing tilt brush VR experience, and The Party, which is a VR film about experiencing autism. Also, separately, we've worked with some incredible talent over the years, including David Tennant and Juliet Stevenson and Simon Callow. So we're going to build on that work and on our current relationships to bring in prominent actors to take on these amazing roles and their journeys. In terms of next steps, from our perspective, we're pretty early on in our journey. And that means we're currently at the R&D stage, the research and development stage, and in particular, the narrative scripting stage. We're talking to researchers, in particular in Australia, relating to Mary's narrative. And so the goal is to bring on board some funding to do that very first R&D stage justice, and then have a $75,000 investment to bring Mary's journey to life. Further on in the future, those additional chapters will need further funding. And I think as we set up our technology pipeline in terms of the machine learning, that will become a lot more clear as we go forward. We would love for you to join us on this journey. I think there's some really exciting beginning points here, and we're looking for partnerships. We're looking for help to make this project come to life, and for people that would be interested in being a part of that story as it develops. So definitely would love to meet you and talk more. Thank you for now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anrick. Much appreciated. All right, the decision makers, if anyone wants to join and ask questions, come on in. I'll start with just curious around the demo. Do we have a demo in the museum? I know that when we demoed this at Cannes, you had a demo, but you were wanting to update it. And what I saw
There's
at
a
Cannes was
demo
beautiful.
in the Museum of Other Realities where you can get that very first sense of Mary and that journey that she would have been on. So
and is this the same that was seen at Cannes? And if not, what's the difference? Just because I think some people probably saw the project there as well.
Yeah, no, it has not significantly updated since then.
Okay, great. Well, I loved that. I thought it was beautiful and it totally captured my imagination. Mark, I see you there. Got a question? Got any thoughts?
I absolutely love this for like hundreds of reasons, and of course I like anything that's got a relationship with Australia, because I do as well. And we had this great experience this year of running Electric Dreams in Australia as part of the Adelaide Fringe, where we were putting on work and charging admission to a very broad audience, who we discovered even in the middle of the Fringe, where you're competing with comedy and circus and physical theatre. We could show quite serious work, a lot of it documentary, and a very, very broad audience was showing up, very happy to pay for tickets, and we sold out sessions and had to put on extra sessions, and of course this is exactly the kind of thing that would do exceptionally well under those circumstances. And and just before COVID hit, you could really sense that there was a viable distribution system that was being built up in Australia. And so that's still there and it's nascent. And then, God willing, by the time you completed this and that goes into that, what it needs is a bit of time, for it to start building audience. And it could be actually quite lucrative, I think.
Great, Mark. Let's chat. We need your input.
Did
Yeah,
you,
thanks, Mark. I mean, I think in particular, the research in terms of the UK and Australia and these journeys is really fascinating. It's also really sensitive subject matter as we understand more about not just the data, but also the research that then followed from that data, and speaking to people in Australia who are either authors or academics, it becomes more clear to us how these journeys really shaped what Australia is today. So it's fascinating to go back to the very beginning point, and try to understand that better. I think it'd be an amazing journey for anybody.
Do you have an Australian partner, a co-producer?
We don't, and we're very keen to find one.
Yeah,
we are in touch with a few people in Australia who I think are certainly interested. Some people have expressed more interest in the machine learning part from a technology perspective. I think, academically, or if you look more at the startup scene, there is some interest there. And then from a narrative perspective, I think, yeah, there are some ongoing discussions for sure.
But what we'd like to do is create a network of global stories, really, that are resonant for different reasons and across different time spans, so that really as a whole, they can be quite an eclectic group.
I do see that as a big opportunity to get this funded, is partnerships with folks in other countries that these stories emanate from. And I would be try to be clever with partnerships and stories that come from countries that have somewhat developed funding, like
we would
Canada.
love a Canadian story.
Yeah, Canada's a great one. Luxembourg.
Do reach out to us.
I mean, what's extraordinary, of course, is that migration has a very broad theme, but in particular, these journeys, early stage journeys of the founding of nations. I mean, they are incredibly complicated stories, but they do exist universally. Our world is shaped by them. So certainly no lack of opportunity to find stories that are fascinating and have so far not been told.
What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Good question. I mean, email is absolutely perfect. Otherwise, I'm on social. Find me on Twitter. ANRICK is all you need to know in terms of finding me personally. So
what's the best email address for people to reach you at?
My personal email address, a@anrk.co.
Okay, wonderful. Well, let's move on then. Thank you so much, Shahani and Anrick. I really appreciate it. Next up is Overwhelm. Ollie, are you there?
Yes,
hey,
I am.
Good
Hey,
to see you, buddy.
You too.
Take it away. Share your screen. Let's get it on.
Coming right up.
All right, at your leisure.
Thanks, Renee and Anna and Ken and Aaron, everybody at Kaleidoscope, VIFF, and Museum of Other Realities, and thank you all for tuning in today. I'm Ollie Rankin, and I'm here to talk about Overwhelm. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm suffering from a little bit of crisis fatigue at the moment. Between the COVID crisis, the economic crisis brought on by the COVID crisis, the ongoing racial justice crisis, the opioid crisis, the Donald Trump is still president crisis, you could be forgiven for temporarily blanking on the fact that we are in the midst of a terrible climate crisis. Except that there's a constant barrage of record temperatures, wildfires, hurricanes, and other extreme weather events to remind us that a century of exploitation and negligence has brought our ecosystem to the verge of collapse. And it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that the climate crisis is caused by technology and can be solved by technology. But the climate crisis is not a technological crisis at all. It's a cultural crisis, and it will require a massive cultural shift to fix. Overwhelm is a multi-platform activation intended to help bring about that massive cultural shift using some of the same kinds of tricks that advertisers use. But convincing people to care about the climate crisis and to act on it isn't like selling a product. There isn't one specific demographic to target. We need to reach everyone. Climate action is not just being blocked by deniers, but it's also being blocked by the apathetic, the unreasonably optimistic, and by the helpless. We need to reach all of these people, and we need to turn them into activists, because the only thing that will trigger action against the climate crisis is an overwhelming number of people demanding action. To turn everyone into activists, we need to make climate change affect the people who are currently unaffected by it And we need to inspire everyone into believing that this massive cultural shift is not only possible, but inevitable. So how do we affect and inspire people? With Overwhelm, we will affect people by sharing the stories of youth around the world whose lives are already being impacted by climate change. We'll use a combination of volumetric capture, 360 video, photogrammetry, and simulated climate disasters to bring the audience into the lives of these kids, to see their futures go up in flames or get swallowed by the sea. Overwhelm is intended to become a growing repository of stories from around the world, beginning with one story each of wildfire, drought, flooding, and melting ice. But these aren't stories of despair so much as they are stories of hope, because they're stories of a generation that's better educated and more connected than any in history. It's a generation that doesn't have the luxury of ignoring climate change, and it's a generation that refuses to sit and watch the planet die. If you went to any of the global climate strikes last year or Black Lives Matter protests this year, you'll still remember the inspiring and invigorating feeling of being part of a huge global movement for positive change. The closest I've felt to that feeling since is during Lost Horizon Festival, a multi-day, multi-stage music, art, and activism festival that I helped organize in VR in July this year. We assembled 10,000 attendees in Sanzar between VR and PC and smartphone apps, and we got something like 4.5 million stream views. Using what we learned from that event, we're going to recreate the experience of being part of a peaceful climate action. We can give audiences that same sense of community and shared purpose. Our goal is to inspire our viewers to become participants, to become engaged, to take part in the cultural shift, and to demand systemic change. And I'm actually something of an expert in virtual crowds. Long before Lost Horizon, back in 1999, I got hired to figure out how to build brains for orcs and elves and choreograph battle scenes in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And you see here that I've actually worked on quite a few movies with CG crowds in them. But of course, this is the volumetric market, so let me also talk about my volumetric credentials. I started researching volumetric capture during my visual effects career, began designing a volumetric pipeline in 2014, and in 2016, I joined a volumetric capture startup in New York. This is a selection of the XR pieces that I've created using volumetric capture and photogrammetry over the last 5 years. But enough about me. I've assembled an amazing, diverse, and talented team of artists and technicians to execute this important project. Every one of them believes in it as passionately as I do, but we need your help to make it happen. We need a dedicated producer, we need a lot of money and in-kind contributions, and we need production partners around the world to help us record the stories of these young witnesses and activists. But most importantly of all, we need every one of you, whether you get involved in this project or not, to spend a few minutes of your day every day thinking about how you can help or who you can help convince to combat climate change. Because if we don't prioritize climate action, there won't be any world left to care about whatever else it is we choose to do instead. Thank you.
Great presentation. Thank you, Ollie. Decision makers, feel free to jump in. So in terms of my questions, I've seen this project develop over the last 6 or 7 months, I guess now, or maybe even longer. What month are we in? Feels like a lifetime ago that we were at the Impact Summit in Seattle. In terms of the part of the story is following these kids, seeing how climate change will impact them. In terms of Tobias, I see that he's part of the team. I know that his specialty is volumetric capture of like physical spaces. I'm curious how you're planning to integrate that, and if that's the plan, is to do volumetric capture for the physical environments as well.
That's right. Yeah, we're gonna use a combination of photogrammetry, lidar scanning, and whichever form of volumetric capture of the subjects is sort of suited. So in some places we'll be going into the ashes of burned down homes, and we'll want to be able to capture those with whatever equipment that we can bring to the site. Some of the subjects will be able to bring to a green screen stage and capture volumetrically there, but others will need to capture in situ with more sort of portable solutions. So yeah, we definitely are not tied to any one technical solution, and we really want to make this a collaborative effort from people in the XR industry around the world who are able to contribute.
Okay, wonderful. Blake, Mark, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so I like how you said that you plan on making this a repository for these types of stories. However, I'm super curious kind of how you see this as a launch in terms of showing your initial view of this. Do you and like how many stories you plan on that having in that initial view, and then do you plan on having them as these individual capsules that people can see, or do you plan on having like a long thread between these?
Sure. Yeah. So our actual next activation is going to be during the Lost Horizon Next Festival in December, which is going to be a month-long, again, music, art, and sort of activism event, culminating in a giant good riddance to 2020 on New Year's. So put that in your calendar, everybody looking for something to do socially distant on New Year's. But yes, we're gonna have an Overwhelm activation inside that to start building up a community, and the sort of part of the experience is going to be about seeing how many people are consuming these stories, and allowing people to leave their comments and their thoughts, to see where in the world these stories are taking place. So there's the sort of interface for it is going to include a globe of the world where you can see where each of these stories are situated, and you can also see where people are logging in from. And so we want to be able to see on a time lapse over the course of a few months this globe filling up with people being activated and taking an interest in these stories. The initial batch of stories, at the moment we're aiming for 4, 1 each, telling stories of wildfire, flooding, droughts, and melting ice. But there are obviously so many other different aspects of climate change that are impacting people, and we kind of want this. We want people to keep on coming back for this to be a virtual location that you can visit when you need to recharge your activist batteries, or be reminded that you're not the only one who cares about this. And so these stories will accumulate inside that sort of repository.
Very cool. Wonderful. Mark, any questions? We have time for one more.
Yeah, it strikes me that at this moment in time, there's a lot of students returning to university, and they can be activated. So they're not part of the XR community that you know how to reach out. But they're also they're locked down in ways that are very confusing for them. And which means that they can be activated all the better, I think, and with something where there is some kind of social distancing that allows them to contribute in a meaningful way. It seems as though it could be useful to have a strategy to reach out to that community right now.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, Ollie, thank you so much for continuing to push this project forward. We need more artists putting their energies and resources behind work like this. So thank you, Ollie.
Thank you again, Renee.
And I look forward to being able to see you again in person whenever that is. It'll be fun. Are you in LA still, or?
I am in LA, yes.
All right, wonderful. Well, my mom lives there, so maybe we'll do a social distance walk sometime in the not too distant.
That sounds great.
All right, take care, Ollie. And next up, we have Uninterrupted. Rae, Nadine, and Betsy, are you there? Hi, Betsy, you're on mute.
Hi.
Oh, and you're back on mute. Now you're off mute.
Go. And Rae, Rae, are you up? There we are. There
Hello.
We are.
Hi there.
Good to see you.
So Betsy's running our slides here, and you'll see Rae in a moment. They're both producers, and I'm the director of Uninterrupted, and we get that first slide up. Here we go.
Wonderful. Honor to have you both.
So in 2017, we headed up a team of artists and filmmakers who took a huge creative leap, moving from producing features for the silver screen to digital mapping. Our original production of Uninterrupted mapped the migration of wild and threatened salmon onto Vancouver's Canby Bridge. Our objective, to bring the heart of a river right into the heart of our city. The International Art Magazine Wallpaper called it one of the top must-see public art installations in the world for 2017. And now we're poised to leap again, this time into VR and AR. But first, the VR. We're liberating our 24-minute story from our site-specific location and moving our bridge and our fish into the goggles. The viewer under our virtual bridge is now swimming with our fish. Joining our team are award-winning developers James Akers and Ellie Zananiri. And together, we're exploring how 6 degrees of freedom and 3D modeling can render our 2D images into 3D magic. As in the original production, there's no narration. Instead, an evocative and spatialized soundscape combines with abstract images and 3D effects to immerse our audiences even deeper into the depths of Uninterrupted's watery world. Uninterrupted is colossal 3D art with a heart for these changing times. Seeing is believing. Here's a glimpse of our show on the bridge where it all started. Under that bridge, people connected with the salmon. And also with each other. As we move to virtual reality, we want to keep the vibrancy of that shared physical experience, especially in these times. So we're creating social VR events, uninterrupted, in synchronized VR, with people enjoying it together, 20 at a time in goggles, physically distanced and in public spaces, many of them in the great outdoors. Our underlying theme reflects the impact urban and industrial development has on nature and what we lose when that connection with nature is frayed. We're going to build on that theme too, this time with the help of augmented reality and Indigenous storyteller Kenthan Thomas of the Secwepemc Nation. You can see Kenthan here in his character Coyote, sharing his humor and his insights. In a complimentary AR feature delivered to audiences via their smartphone, Kenthan will appear in volumetric capture through the work of specialist Tobias Chen. Kenthan, as Coyote, will share another way of imagining that connection between people, salmon, and nature. Uninterrupted VR Social advances the use of technology, while it also builds on the storytelling, the goodwill, and the profile of the original. It also has the benefit of leveraging the original $2.5 million investment made by a great network of contributors. So what's next? For the new edition launching in 2021, we've already raised more than a third of the budget required. Now we're here, searching for the next third, $200,000 to finance the augmented reality production and a portion of the synchronized VR. We invite you to think about joining this big swim and become part of taking the heart of a river to the heart of cities across North America. Thanks to everyone. We look forward to any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. What a beautiful project, and I'm so glad to see you bringing it to VR. Mark, Blake, if you're still around, jump in. Feel free to ask any questions. I guess I'm really curious to know. You mentioned this jump from the silver screen into the immersive world. I'm really curious to know a little bit more about what you've learned in that transition and how you'll apply it to this new iteration of the project.
Well, I think one of the things that's been phenomenal for us is to be able to take our 2D images from a real world where we've shot entirely underwater, and then first of all apply it through digital mapping onto the bridge. But now that we're moving into VR, this is not just a matter of a VR document of an art piece that was manifested before, but rather it gives us the opportunity as artists to take these 2D images and push them even further into the 3D world. So it's a very exciting project because we have the backbone of the show, and now we're really pushing in terms of 3D modeling and dealing with particles and caustics, and just really saying, okay, how much further can we go in terms of this storyteller to further immerse our audiences underwater.
I love it. What do you hope audiences will walk away with when they take the headset off?
Well, we know from the experience that we've already had that there's a sense of witnessing something miraculous and important. And it's one of the reasons why we wanted to have the synchronized VR experience, because we've found under the bridge that even amongst strangers, there was this sense that you felt connected all of a sudden because you had witnessed something that was important, and you felt connected to it and to each other. So it's a message of reflection. The project has many different parts, so we actually include a call to action that encourages people to help keep the cycle uninterrupted, as it has been for millions of years. So it's those aspects we hope that they walk away with.
Wonderful. I don't know if Mark and Blake are still on the line, but I'll keep going. Or if anyone who's watching has any questions, feel free to throw it in the chat logs where we are monitoring those. Hello, Mark.
Hi, yeah, I'm still here. I was just, I think I'd like a little bit more explanation as to what would the communal experience be like, and how would that work outdoors? So how will you make that a shared experience? So what kind of technological solutions will you be using in order to kind of overcome some of the limitations of VR, which tends to sort of enclose you into that world?
Well, first of all, in terms of the delivery of the piece itself, we're putting together a launch tour, which will embrace basically a synchronized screening of 20 people 6 feet apart in one area who are watching the show together. And this we'll be working with various different communities throughout British Columbia, and then right across the country. We'll be launching this in this coming spring and summer. And then in terms of the actual inside the piece itself, we're, as artists, and working with our developers, figuring out how the VR language can actually have the piece reach out and touch the people. So for instance, we are, our bridge, we start with our bridge, but then our bridge actually folds right around us, and the fish and the images are around us in a way that we were not able to do before in the actual physical location. So we're hoping that in both those ways, we really, really connect with our audience even more of them.
And we're also developing an audience engagement feature so that as people are getting settled in their headsets, there's something that they become aware of that has significance in terms of the number of salmon that now make it back to their spawning grounds, which is vastly fewer than it used to be. And that audience engagement feature will make itself felt at the end of the VR presentation as well. So those 20 people will be connected to each other as well as the event.
And a big part of our life here is the Indigenous experience as well. And this is where the AR comes in. And when people are booking their seat online, they're going to get a gift from us. And that is going to be a volumetric capture of Secwepemc storyteller Kenthan Thomas, and he is going to be telling the story of the salmon from an entirely different way of seeing. So we're really looking forward to enjoying how to meld those, both AR and VR.
Beautiful. Well, thank you all for being a part of this program and for making such beautiful work. I'm really thrilled to see it, and I'm always excited when someone from a really prestigious film background decides to venture out into this new frontier. So thank you for making the leap.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
We're on to our last presentation. Thank you everyone for sticking with us. Layer by David Clarkson, tuning in from Australia. Hi, David. Good to see you.
Yeah, good morning. It's well, it's not as early as it was when I got up. I had to get up at 4, but anyway, I'm here and still alive.
You look like you're awake, which is as much as anyone could ask. So thank you.
You're welcome. Just give us a second. I'll get this up and happening. Okay. Okay, you should have me.
I got you. Go for it.
Good. Okay. Hi, I'm David Clarkson from Box of Birds, based in Sydney, Australia. And this is our project Layer. Layer is a mixed reality dance performance made to be simulcast in volumetric capture. Box of Birds is a collective of filmmakers, theatre artists, dancers, animators, and 3D technologists. We started off as a physical theatre company, making works of image and scale, both for outdoors and indoors. We've toured extensively to Europe, Asia, and South America. Over the last decade, we've become increasingly focused integrating interactive digital technology to live performance, both to intimate audiences and then sometimes up to 3,000 or 4,000 people. When COVID lockdown hit, we were left with cancelled performances in Mexico, Singapore, and Australia. What were we to do? I thought of working with artists who were in walking distance to my home. Layer was born. Chloe Fournier, who was a dancer who lived within walking distance to my house, is from France. Boris, who was Ridley Scott's lead live animator for Alien, lives across the park from me. We suddenly thought, let's film Chloe dancing, but let's place her back in France, where she can no longer travel to. So we now have Chloe dancing in her beautiful virtual fields of Brittany back in France. Who knows when she'll be able to see her loved ones again in reality. I then reached out to Katina, an Indigenous dancer who cannot travel to her traditional lands in Queensland, and then to Olympia, an Australian dancer stranded in the Netherlands, who, due to COVID, is unable to see her family in Australia. Chloe, Katina, and Olympia become the 3 protagonists in a mixed reality work that will have its first premiere later this year as an immersive simulcast live performance event in Australia and the Netherlands. At its heart, Layer asks the question, where is our home in this fractured world we all live in? We're working in Unreal, Unity, and Touch Designer, all with a focus on simulcast. We've been using both Intel and Microsoft cameras to capture our environments. And we've been fortunate to be supported by a range of grants, including an Epic Games mega grant. A Netherlands collaborators based in Groningen in the north of Holland will co-present the work at the Grand Theatre there. That's in December. We've also just begun a partnership with video effects company Albion in France to help us capture the French landscapes. Here's a short teaser. Exclude the glitches, it's bad internet speed from Australia. We are seeking further partners to support Leia in a range of ways. Presentation partners such as dance, theatre companies or festivals from anywhere in the world who would like to join us in crafting a localised version of Leia. We're also seeking funding partners to help us with the financial ask of the project. And finally, technology partners to assist us with hardware and software acquisitions or in-kind support for Leia. Here is our budget to date. As you can see, we've raised $125,000 for the project, but we are looking for more finance to fully realize the vision for Leia. We have an outstanding team of artists and technologists working on Leia and would love to have you join us in the project, either as a presenter, a festival, or a financial supporter. The individual stories, the simulcast and immersive aspects of Leia, I believe, truly stand out. Thank you for taking an interest. Happy to answer any questions. And yeah, good morning from Australia.
Great job. And even though the video was a bit choppy, it is really striking. The visual development of the project has already gone so far. And the music you had was beautiful. Who was that?
That's he lives not within walking distance. Peter Kennard, a long-term collaborator. He did the composition.
Yeah, really fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know if Mark is still here or Blake or Lauren from Tribeca. I know Milo had to leave, but jump in with questions. For me, we rehearsed with you the other day, so I feel like I've got a good sense, but I'll jump in with thoughts and feedback after I hear from Mark.
Hi, David. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you again. It feels like 100 years ago, just as COVID was hitting.
It was another universe.
It was indeed.
So I've got a couple of questions. So first up is, would I be able to be in the audience for the event in December? And if so, how? And then my next question would be, is this 3 individual performances that make up one work, or do the performers actually meet each other in the same space at some stage?
Yeah, so they meet two of the Australians will be in the same physical space at a venue, performance venue, and then the third live performer is in the Netherlands. And so we have a Dutch team over there, So they meet in virtual space, but then they are projected also into the space. And it will be both live streamed, so you could watch it that way, or you can physically come and see the piece in Sydney.
It's a rather pedestrian question, but in terms of the tech of live streaming, how are you doing that? Because as we've covered in some of the other panels today, volumetric is very heavy data.
Yeah, so I have some very clever coders who are probably still asleep right now. So that's a lot of our work has been using, I think, Spout, basically compressing and decompressing the feed. So it's a big tech ask, but I can send you a link to the rehearsals from last week where we are doing it. We are doing it.
So yeah, it's highly stylized. So I imagine that, yeah, that's part of probably the hack for compressing it, is just that you've figured out what data points are really essential to transmit, and the rest you're sort of just interpolating.
Yeah, and because it blends live, some of it can be pre-canned in the spaces and projected into the space, and then others is live. So it's that mix of live and pre-canned with the live performance event.
Wonderful. And the environments that you have, at least in the demo, they look like they were volumetric captured, but they could also have been, generated in another way. So is it just the performers that are volumetric captured, or is it the entire space as well?
No, that's all captured with volumetric capture. So the landscapes as well. Yeah.
Very good. Wonderful. Well, again, I feel like I know a lot about the project because, I've been tracking it, and we met the other day, but I think the part of it that resonates for me is this sense of longing for a home you can't return to, and I think so many of us can relate to that right now.
Yes.
It's there's almost all of our hearts are split in many different places, and in our modern life we're used to being able to travel there and connect with those people and places. And I think your project will have a lot of resonance because of that. And I also commend you for being so responsive. I think projects that respond to the moment and the situation that we're in and that you're experiencing, those are often the strongest because they, there's something authentic about them. So
yeah, we want to make a piece that's both of the moment, but then will last. And I think, that other piece before about migration, so many of us have that story. So yes, that's the heart of it.
Wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much, David, for getting up early and for being a part of this program. And I know that everyone who's a part of VIFF will, support this work however we can. So, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Just via email, david@boxofbirds.net.
Wonderful.
Yeah, always happy to have a chat.
Well, I look forward to seeing everyone in the Museum of Other Realities now, where we're going to be demoing work, already have for a number of days since I believe the 24th of last week. And I also want to remind everyone that we've got a couple of awards that are going to be given out. Specifically, the Microsoft Mixed Reality Capture Studio has a special prize that they're going to award to one of the projects in this lineup for studio time in their San Francisco studio as soon as they open up. Which is incredibly generous. Their studio time is incredibly expensive. So the fact that they're donating that is wonderful. Thank you so much. EF EV is also donating their software to all of the projects in the program, a 1-year license to that, which is wonderful. And then same thing for Sense of Space. They're making their software available. So thank you to all of our partners, especially those offering these awards. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for a number of other great talks and presentations from our completed selection, work that has been already finished and is looking for curation and distribution. My name is Renee Pennell with Kaleidoscope. You can learn more about us by heading over to kaleidoscope.fund, and we hope for you to join our community. Thank you to all the presenting artists, and we'll see you in the museum. All right. Goodbye, everyone.